Coming up next on Insights on PBS Hawaii, how can children growing up homeless break the cycle? Aloha and welcome to Insights on PBS Hawaii. I'm Malia Maddock. For hundreds of children growing up in Hawaii, home may be an emergency shelter, transitional housing, a tent, or some other makeshift dwelling. As elected officials, social service providers, and others work with homeless families to get them into permanent housing, others are working with the children of these families to help them see brighter futures that don't include being homeless as adults. Tonight, how can children growing up homeless break the cycle? We want to hear from you during tonight's conversation. Call 973-1000 if you live on Oahu, or 800-238-4847 if you're calling from a neighbor island. You can also watch Insights streamed live at pbshawaii.org. Just click on the title of tonight's show, or find us on Twitter at PBS Hawaii. Now to our panel. Connie Mitchell is Executive Director of the Institute for Human Services, a social services organization that runs an emergency shelter and provides other assistance to homeless individuals and families. Victoria Cuba knows from personal experience what it's like to grow up without a permanent home. The Waipahu High School graduate earned a scholarship to the University of Hawaii and is working to fulfill her dreams of becoming a storyteller, which includes working here at PBS Hawaii. Renson Ani and his family recently moved from the Family Promise of Hawaii shelter into an apartment. He is 17 years old and a senior at McKinley High School. Renson is in McKinley's ROTC program, which he hopes will lead to a military career that could help pay for his college education. Jill Puletasi is principal of Ka'iolani Elementary School in Kalihi. Her school has a high percentage of students who are homeless or living in public housing. She was previously the vice principal at Washington Middle School, where she was part of the award-winning AVID team in 2012. AVID, or Advancement via Individual Determination, is a global nonprofit aimed at closing achievement gaps and preparing students for higher education. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. Ms. Mitchell, may I start with you? Could you tell us what are the particular challenges, day-to-day challenges, facing children from homeless families?
I think overall the lack of structure is something that a lot of the children wrestle with, because if their families are not sure where they're going to be the next day, that could be a real challenge. I think as they come into the shelter, we try to provide some sense of structure and predictability, that you have regular meal times, you have a place to go and shower and get dressed and all of that. So I think that's a really big one, is just really having routines and structure. That is really missing for a lot of children who are homeless.
Ms. Puletasi, does any of that ring true in terms of what you see in the students who fall in this category who are coming every day to your school?
So every school in the Department of Education has students who are homeless. Certain schools have students that are identified homeless because the families have self-identified themselves as homeless, and in other schools there are families that don't want to disclose it. So all of our schools are addressing the needs of all of our students. At my particular school, I do know that we have a number of students, but when they are at school, we treat them like all of the other students. And when they're there, they're so resilient, they're focused, and they're trying really, really hard to be good students, that they're trying not to think about how life is very different for them when they leave our campus. So truly, our school is a safe haven during the day for these students, because life, once they leave school, is very challenging and very hard for them.
Victoria, was school a safe haven for you growing up?
It definitely was. Like Ms. Puletasi said earlier, that when I went to school, school was on my mind, and I tried to focus on that. It was a way for me to not think about home and to think about my future and think of how I was going to help my family. And if you can't do it at home, then you should be able to feel safe at school.
Ms. Puletasi talked about identifying, self-identifying, or going into school, choosing not to. What was your situation?
At home, my family lived in a car for the last couple years of high school, and I don't know, we just tried to make ends meet and tried not to dwell on our situation, because if we did that, then we'd probably still be stuck in that same mindset and never get out of it.
Could I ask, did you choose to identify that situation to school, or did you choose to keep that private?
At first I chose to keep it private because I was so afraid of being taken away from my family, from my brother, and I was just scared that people were going to judge. And if you read what people say, if you hear what people say about what's going on in our community, sometimes there's no heart in it, and it's just, you really do feel like you're going to give up hope. But school was just someplace I could be myself, and they helped me when I needed to have help. And
Renson, does that sound like your experience in terms of, did you feel like school was sort of or is a safe haven?
Yeah, like we got friends, I got friends and cousins that go there and they treat me with the same, like how they live, they treat me like how they are. And yeah, school's pretty much a good place to be, because of course you'll get a lot from you, like education. Mm-hmm. And education will help you, like after graduating from high school, you can look forward into life and your future.
And we talked about sort of breaking that cycle, if you will. Sounds like a lot goes into that, but education is probably a very large component of it. Was that something that you decided on early on you were really going to focus on, Victoria?
Yeah, so my family was homeless before now, and my mom made sure that we worked our butts off, and she told us, I don't care if you're sick, I don't care if you're tired, you're going to school, because school is the only way, education is the only way that you'll get out of the situation again. School was my hope to get out.
Mm-hmm. Ms. Mitchell, do you find when you see the families coming through IHS, do you find that the parents' viewpoint, like Victoria's mother, it makes a big difference in terms of how far the children are going to be going in education and life?
Absolutely. I think if parents really value the education, it makes a huge difference. And I was having a conversation earlier with Jill, and if they're going to school, which we really make sure all of our children are in school, and we check with the schools to make sure that they're getting there and that they're doing well in school. If they're having trouble, we really try to remediate whatever it is that they're having difficulty with. We know we can bring in a tutor for them if necessary. So I think that is a big thing. And I think if you have parents like Victoria's parents or Renson's too, that really let them know, hey, it's important to be in school. It's going to really make a difference, because you guys listen to your parents, right?
Yeah.
Do you have families coming through that the parents do not?
Yes, we do have parents that sometimes are so embroiled in their own issues. There might be some domestic violence going on, or someone's just really depressed, because they lost their job. So sometimes they're not paying attention to their children.
And of course that can happen in non-homeless families as well, right? Yeah.
So I think really, we're trying to help stabilize a lot of those situations and bring that hope back, into the family, but also to help the parents know that their children really need them, and really, encourage them to do the parenting that they really can do.
Sweeps are very much in the news right now. Some of the families that are experiencing these sweeps are still saying they do not want to be moved into shelters, that that's not what they want for their family. Do you think that if a family chooses to stay in an encampment, if you will, that their children can have the same access to the programs? Is it possible to do that for your child, having made that choice?
I think it really depends on the age of the children, and also what the parents have to offer them. But I do know that the research shows that for children who are homeless at a very young age, if they start preschool at around 3 or so, they're already behind a lot of the time, and getting to preschool is another factor too. Are they going to actually make it? Most of the homeless families don't really have that happen for their children, and so they fall further behind sometimes. So my hope is that people will really consider coming into the shelter and really availing themselves of some of the structure that can be provided.
Renson, you experienced living in a shelter as a family. What is your perspective? I know from talking to you earlier that you did not have the experience of living in an encampment. When you hear about that choice that families are making, do you think that one is preferable to the other for children of homeless families?
Well, it actually depends where you live. Like me, when I was in 8th grade, not 8th grade, sophomore year, I lived in a small shelter. And then there's 5 of us, me, my mom, and then my 2 brothers. And I experienced, like, it was pretty hard because I still remember when we used to, like, sleep on our bed, and then me and my little brother had to share. And then my mom and dad gave up their comfort just for us so we can feel comfortable. And yeah.
And it was probably some pretty challenging years for the family. What made a difference for you?
Like, my mom heard about this program, Family Promise. Mm-hmm. This program, it helps like families go through struggles, like a second chance in life, so they can get back on their feet. Mm-hmm. And then Family Promise, it's a good program. No, it's not it's great. They help my parents and I with a lot of stuff. Also my little brothers. For example, my mom, at first she used to work in a fast food restaurant. Low paying job, her monthly paycheck couldn't pay half of our bill. And then my stepdad, but I call him dad because he treated me like a dad. Mm-hmm. He worked in Ala Moana, like a little restaurant, dishwasher. Same thing. The monthly paycheck couldn't. So when they both worked together, they got to chip in together just to pay for our house rent. And then Family Promise gave me and my family the opportunity to find housing, also help my parents to save up and manage their money. They also teach them how to they teach them how to save. And then also they help us with schoolwork. Like if we need schoolwork, they have their tutoring, like a little tutoring. And then they also help with a lot of stuff. They give us school supplies and all the other great opportunities. And
you were saying this year you, for the first time in a very long time, have your own personal space.
Yeah.
What is that like?
Well, now I have my own room, my own place to sleep. I feel comfortable now. I don't have to deal with my little brothers acting playing around rough kind. And then my 2 brothers, now they got their own room. They have their own space. They can do whatever they want. And then I can do whatever I want. And then my parents, how they had to give up their bed just for us. Now they got their own place too, their own personal space too.
You have a home.
Yeah.
Victoria, could I ask you the question, in terms of the choice families have to make between sort of continuing to live in some sort of encampment situation, similar to some of the situations you experienced going to a shelter, what insight can you give us, having experienced this, in terms of that choice for a family? Do you think one is better than the other, or do you think it's up to the individual situation?
I think that it really is up to the individual. My mom decided that shelters weren't for us. She wanted us to stick together, and she was constantly worried that something was going to happen if we were in a shelter. Not saying that shelters are bad, but
that was her fear.
That was her fear. And sometimes living in an encampment, living close to people who are in the same situation really does build that trust. You know, you guys experience something nobody else could. You guys don't judge each other because you guys are stuck in the same boat. And sometimes I think that's a good thing, you know. People constantly bash on encampments, but they don't realize that they're creating their own family within that community. It's kind of like them against the world.
You were sharing with me earlier that a driving force for your mom was the fear of her children being taken away, of CPS, and that she had actually said to you, do not share the fact that we're homeless, because she was afraid of that. Can you tell us a little bit about, that must have been an interesting thing to carry with you to school every day, that fear or that sense. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So in 7th grade, we were evicted and we were living in a junkyard for me, it was actually a really good experience. I could just be a kid and not have to worry about anything.
And when you say junkyard, it was a shipping container,
yes,
correct?
We lived in our a Matson container. So, but every day she would tell us, you know, just keep it quiet, that we're in this situation. Not everybody believes in what we're doing. You guys could be taken away, and that scared me to death. I was scared that we already lost so much, and to lose the one thing that was holding us together would just be devastating. I made sure to try to keep away from my friends. I was afraid that they'd see I'd smell, or that I was just different, or I was wearing the same clothes I was wearing yesterday. But it kind of is just like your family is the one that's keeping you going.
Mm-hmm. What was it like? How did you guys manage showering, that sort of thing? I mean, what was the day-to-day life like that perhaps people take it for granted?
We would shower with a water hose at night, and we would shower with our clothes on, which is a hard task, I might add. And it wouldn't be every day because we could get sick because it was cold. Or we'd shower at other family members' houses, or try to just like put a gi bath and just wet ourselves. But it was a struggle, but it was something we had to overcome, and my mom made sure to never give up on us.
Yeah. Ms. Pulitasi, what do you see in your school life with your students in terms of things like showering or school supplies, that sort of thing? What are the challenges, and what sort of situation do you find helps the kids in those situations?
For the most part, our students do come to school clean. Some of the children, though, have had, and it's not only children who's been identified homeless, this is an issue that strikes all families, but there is the issue of head lice, which happens to
everybody in Hawaii. Yeah.
Yes, and that is a battle that we've been dealing with. But for the most part, the kids are very clean, and they do have their clothes. Sometimes the clothes are hand-me-downs, so it tends to be a little large, or they tend to wear the same outfit pretty frequently. There are agencies that have reached out, and we can provide things for our students with the help of the community that we could not do by ourselves. So, for example, their Alliance Hawai'i, they have given gift certificates for our students to go to Walmart and get clothes. And that makes a huge difference, because some students just don't want to come to school because their friends keep seeing them in the same clothes over and over.
Is teasing an issue?
It can be. They're children. They don't mean ill, but they're very observant, and they like to share what they see and what they noticed, and they'll point it out because they're very young kids. We also have a great partnership with the Hawaii Food Bank, which is also sponsored by Walmart. And so every Friday, our students are taking a bag of food home for the weekend to carry them over. And it's all of our students, because again, we want to provide the same opportunities across the board to every child and not single any of the students out. School supplies, many of our families will take advantage of the sales, and the students will come to school with their school supplies, but they don't have everything that they need. And again, there's a lot of partners out there in the community that helps the Department of Education to provide everything that we need for our students. And without these partnerships, we couldn't do everything that we do.
Yeah. Ms. Mitchell, we were talking about child protective services and that being a fear, but are there some cases where the situation is grave enough that that is the necessary sort of step to take for the child's welfare?
Definitely. I think, you know, we're not talking about, you know, the situations here, but we've come across families where parents are really mired in substance abuse and really are not themselves, you know, and they're not able to be, you know, proper parents at that time. And, you know, we do fear for the safety of the children, and we're required by law to report child abuse. So that does become an issue, although we really try hard to reunify families, you know, if they're really making the efforts to do the right thing by their children. So I think, you know, people need to know that I think for us, children come first, you know, so if the children really need the protection, we will. But we also value the fact that we want to keep families together because they really are the source of a lot of the sense of safety. no matter how bad sometimes, you know. So I think it really is a matter of knowing when we can, when we need to, and when we really don't want to, you know, but sometimes you just have to.
Yeah. And substance abuse and domestic violence would be cases. All right.
Or neglect, you know, like if parents are just not paying attention to the children, they're not caring for the children, not providing nutrition, not providing, you know, the proper care. So that really does become a problem.
Could you give me any sense of the percentage of families where this becomes to that level that you see in the shelter, or is it hard? Does it change constantly?
It changes, but I have to say that they're not that many. You know, usually families are struggling together and they really want to, you know, do the right thing together. But there are families that are, as I said, you know, encountering some of the more difficult things that really make them not able to be the parents that they need to be.
There are many homeless parents that are great parents.
Yes. Well, it sounds like yours are two guest
and
parents.
They bring their children to school every day, and they do the best we can, or they can. But it's also a sign of the times where the housing market is very limited, and the cost of rent is really, really high. So many families are just one paycheck away from being homeless at any time.
Yeah.
So it's not a situation that's really just for the people who are drug dependent or mentally challenged.
Should be the stereotype.
Which are the stereotypes.
Right.
There's many families that are homeless that you'd be surprised
Yeah.
are homeless.
Well, one of the things when we were talking before the show, when Renson and Victoria were telling me a little bit about their stories, from what I got from both of you, there was never a point during which both of your families were homeless in which your parents were not working. They were working pretty much through the entire time, and it shows you just how many people can fall into this while trying their absolute best and doing the right thing every day. This is a question that's come in. What kind of impact does the uncertainty of homelessness have on children? Victoria, could you talk a little bit about that? Did things feel very uncertain for the years that you were living in these different types of sort of, you know, whether it was in the junkyard, the car, floating between relatives' homes? What was that like?
I guess it's just because my mom was just always a pillar for me, or positive influence.
It didn't feel that uncertain?
It doesn't. And I kind of tend to think, you know, if this is the worst, it can only get better. But I mean, there are times, like now especially, my family is still in the same situation, and I'm dorming due to having enough money to go to school. Well,
because of your scholarship, you now have a home at University of Hawaii, but your family and your brother are still homeless.
Yes, and it's kind of hard. Like lately, I've just been thinking maybe it's not going to change, but if I think that way, then nothing is. And if I stop myself from doing what I'm doing now, nothing's going to change. If I'm not the one to change it, who will be?
And you were actually saying that right now you're currently working 3 jobs, correct? And part of that is to help your family.
Yeah.
Renson, you were talking about that as well. You were saying part of your motivation for OTC, for wanting to go to college, wanting a military career, was to help support your family.
Support my family. Like, for me, like why I want to join the military, because in the military they help you with a lot of benefits, housing, food, insurance, and there's a lot. And then I want to join the military so I can pay back what my parents did for me, what they went through. I don't want, if I ever had kids, I don't want my kids to go through what I went through. So I would love to.
That sort of leads to this question. What kind of resiliency do these children show? It's a lot of resiliency that you two are showing. Do you find this in a lot of children of homeless families, that the strength?
I think children in general are very resilient. And I think, you know, as Victoria's story kind of describes, you know, it kind of depends how you approach it or how you view your situation. You know, if most children probably would not, you know, think so much about their homelessness. They're just, you know, children, and they're dealing with school. They're dealing with the things that they're interested in. And my hope is that, you know, even if they're homeless, that they will be able to grow up with the values that their parents give them, and many times that is the case. But I think if some of the children don't have that, then it makes it very difficult for them to be able to, do something different in the future. But their parents sometimes are just trying to survive, and so that makes it really difficult.
Let me direct this next question for you to you. It's from Lloyd in Waialae and for Connie Mitchell. What are the common reasons given for families choosing to reject shelters and preferring to live on the street?
Well, I think some of them want the privacy that sometimes being together unsheltered allows them, and I understand that and so I really feel like the trend now is to try to help families get into housing and then provide the services while they're in housing instead of bringing them into a shelter. We certainly feel like shelters are needed in some cases, but in others a lot of the families are homeless because of economic reasons, and so it really is just providing that home for them, and then just providing the training and the added value of maybe finding another job to help that particular family.
Let me give this question to Victoria and Renson. How safe did the teen panelists feel when they didn't have permanent shelter? Did you always feel safe, Renson?
Living in shelters?
Yeah.
Like family promise? Yeah.
You did?
I felt safe.
Yeah. Victoria, your family situation was more extreme. Did you feel safe?
Certain times I did when I was at the junkyard because it was more of a close-knit community. But lately, anything can happen. My brother got threatened at the public library because he had something that somebody else wanted. And it seems like lately a lot of things have been happening just around in my community that it feels like I should be there with my family, but I have to continue on.
With your education.
Yes.
This is a follow-up question. I think I know your answer, but I'll ask it. Did the teens ever feel like they would have been better off in foster care? Was there ever a time when you felt that? Renson?
No.
No.
Because it's better to live with your family. Because why would you take a child away from their own parents? How are they going to live?
And Victoria, you're nodding as well. Is that what you felt?
Same with me, yeah. I mean, like I said earlier, your family is your support system, and it's huge in Hawaii, but I couldn't imagine getting through what we've been through if it wasn't for my family.
Ms. Pulitasi, do you have students who are in foster care because situations have gotten extreme in their family? Do you see that in your daily work?
We do have students that are in foster care because situations have become extreme in their families, but it had nothing to do with the fact that they were homeless. It was for other reasons within the household.
All right, let me direct this next question to Connie. Some people will not go into shelter because alcohol is not allowed there. I think that it ought to be allowed so that more people will go there, and if they become a problem, they can be thrown out. There are some sort of living arrangements in Hawaii that do allow for some alcohol consumption, though, are there not? I know not IHS, but there are.
We don't allow any alcohol in our family shelter because of the fact that we've seen the effects of it on some people, and we just really want to preserve the health and safety of all the children and the families there. So that is why we don't allow it. But if someone were to be having a drink outside and they come back into the shelter and their behavior doesn't impact, we probably wouldn't say anything about that. People just go to sleep,
You want people to be able to continue to move forward.
Yes. And we want people to just, have the kind of behavior that would preserve the sense of safety in the shelter.
Do you think that there should be more shelter space in Hawaii that allows for on-site alcohol consumption? Do you think that would sort of attract more people into shelter, protection, if you will?
Protection.
Well, I know some have said that they feel that that is a big issue for getting some people into shelters, and so should there be more shelter space that allows it? I know IHS does not want to. Do you think that there should be a variety of different situations?
I have strong feelings about a family shelter, but I think if it's like a single shelter that, you know, people are drinking and they, you know, we need a wet kind of shelter.
That's what, yeah.
Yeah, and that's okay with me, but I feel
But not family.
Yeah, not family.
Yeah, and would the panel agree with that? Yeah. All right, tonight we're discussing how children can break the cycle of homelessness. Please call, email, or tweet your questions and comments. Call 973-1000 if you're calling from Oahu, and 800-238-4847 if you're calling from a neighbor island. Let's see, let's go to this question now. What is the panel's thoughts on the shame that some homeless children can feel? We addressed that a little bit. Do you think sort of as people become more educated with this issue that people will understand? Are you seeing sort of a growing understanding of this situation in schools?
I think children are very accepting of all children. Children with special needs, children who are homeless, children who look different from them. They're just very accepting individuals. It's as you get older that you start becoming biased and having opinions. So in school, the fact that a child is homeless is not such a big issue as it is out in the community. And part of it is we know administratively who they are, but all that information is kept very confidential. Despite our efforts of keeping it confidential, the students still know because they're all out in the community together. They see who goes where and who does not go to where everybody else is going. And so they know, but they do not make it an issue amongst themselves. I have never seen children exclude another child just because of that type of an issue.
I also want to say that, you know, with Victoria and Renson actually being on, you know, a show like this where you're actually sharing your experience, that really helps to break the stigma that's attached to it. And I really want to thank you guys for being here to share that.
Absolutely. I wanted to ask ask you guys a little bit. Could you tell me, like, Victoria, how did your mom take care of feeding you guys when you were in the storage container? What was dinner for you guys?
We, like every local kid, grew up on Spam and Simon.
How did you cook? Did you have a Bunsen burner? Like, did you have a little,
like
a mobile stove kind of thing? Okay, and refrigeration?
We were lucky enough to be able to get electricity from the junkyard, although we tried not to make use as much because it wasn't our electricity. But we would store our food in an ice box. Now we have an ice chest cooler, and we just try to keep it filled with ice. But yeah, but
Where your parents are now.
Yeah. So my mom would actually use her week-to-week check to pay for food, and sometimes it seemed like we wouldn't get food for the next week, and we'd have to rely on school food. And that just goes back to how much the schools really do care about their students.
Getting lunch, getting breakfast.
Making sure that they were nourished and well fed.
Yeah. Were your breakfast and lunch at school?
The same as hers.
I mean, did you count on school for food, or was that something?
Sometimes. Because my parents, of course, they would try their best to put food on the table for us. But then sometimes they won't, because they gotta like put half of the money like aside for something else, like our house rent, and like I said earlier. But then yeah. Without, like, we're lucky because there's also that free meal, at school. We signed up for that too, and then we got approved.
You were sharing with me before the show that one thing that was, I never would have thought of this, complicated about living in a shelter is you would spend the night at a church facility, and then you would need to get back to the shelter for a shower, and then you need to get back to school, right?
Yeah. Well, that's the congregation churches. Like Family Promise, Family Promise is a center that they keep us there for from morning to afternoon, and then at night they bring us to like other churches and in the other churches they provide food, and then like comfortable, not materials, but like portable beds, but like air mattress, And then in the morning, they give us dinner. They make dinner for us, and then we're thankful for that too, because they feed us. And in the morning, there's some churches that have showers for us, and then we can shower. And then at 6, they make breakfast for us too. So I'm thankful for
You were saying, though, that when you have children, you don't want to have them go through this.
Yeah, go through life like what I experienced.
And we started the show by asking about breaking the cycle. So what are the things that you're determined to do in your life to break the cycle? It sounds like education is a big one.
Good career, find the best opportunity you can find.
And you've already got some things you've got in mind for a career, right?
Yes. Just got to pass that ASVAB.
Working with your hands. Victoria, in terms of breaking the cycle, you clearly have put a lot of thought into this. Can you share a little bit, how early on were you determined to sort of make sure that you got the education you needed?
As soon as my mom told me that, I mean, education has always been a part of our lives, but it was critical when we became homeless because my mom was constantly telling me, you know, you're not going to get out of this if you don't get an education. If you don't go to school, this is not going to happen. But, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm thinking for my children yet, but I'm still focused on trying to get my family off the streets.
Yeah.
And, you know, my mom was the one to tell me everything's going to be all right. And right now she's kind of stuck in a rut and just seems like, you know, because we're older, she doesn't need to take care of herself anymore. So I kind of want to be the one person that she was to me back then and, you know, just be able to tell her that things are going to change.
And get them into housing. What are your thoughts in terms of how you can see that happening? I mean, that's a very challenging sort of step to take. Maybe I actually kind of could ask you, in that sort of situation, what do you think are the quickest or the most sort of expedient steps to making that happen for a family?
I think if a family is willing, you know, to work with one of the service providers, we are doing assessments for families, determining what their vulnerabilities are, and then actually matching them up with the right housing program. And you know, if it means signing up for public housing, for Section 8, you know, different housing programs or Housing First, you know, we have a lot of different options. So my hope is that Victoria's family will actually sign up and, you know, start working with the service provider.
Do you think that's something that your parents would be open to?
I think so. It will just take a lot of time, but because, you know, after years of trying to do everything yourself, it's kind of hard to let it go and have somebody else help you out. But I mean, if it'll help them and, you know, just ease our worries and our pain, I think that would be great.
Here's a question for Vincent and Victoria. What about your siblings? Do you feel they too can break the cycle? Vincent?
My brothers? Yeah, they can. If they do the same thing as like what I'm doing, if they follow my step and have the same attitude as I do, they can. All you need is just motivators, your family, friends.
Victoria, you've got a younger brother.
Yes, and it's so funny that Renson is in ROTC because my brother is actually in ROTC too. And me and my brother actually have different last names, and for that I'm kind of glad because I want him to kind of carve out his own future and not have to follow in my steps. I mean, I want him to support our family, but I want him to do it his way. And I just want him to know that I'd support him every step of the way.
You sound like a good older sister. Let's see, let's go to some of the other comments. From David in St. Louis Heights, it's a travesty that people who work multiple jobs can't afford even the most basic place to live. Shouldn't we as a society do something structural to change this situation? Maybe I can ask everyone in the panel, if there was one thing that you could see changed here in Hawaii, and of course we've got this very expensive cost of living, what would it be? Connie.
I think it's exactly that. You know, I also believe it's a travesty that when people work as hard as they do, that they can't afford housing. That's something that really is a broken compact with people. You know, everybody before knew that, okay, if you work hard, you can get ahead. But people just aren't experiencing that these days. And really, I would like to see that change, that housing is prioritized, you know, by our leaders, you know, in government, and and everyone in the community, if we were to pull together to find ways to just develop more affordable housing, that would be really neat.
Jill?
I believe education is a great equalizer. So giving our students the tools that they need from kindergarten to be successful in school and ultimately go to college is a first step. But I also believe for the families that are receiving benefits from social services, whether it's housing or EBT cards, whatever it may be, if you have children, then you also have an obligation to send your children to school, and you need to send your children to school every day and on time for the whole entire duration of the day. And IHS does a wonderful job at working with the schools to make sure that their clients who have children send their children to school. And to me, that is the model that all of the social service agencies should look at. If we're providing food, or we're providing clothing, or we're providing housing, then their children should be in school
And
every
sometimes
day.
that's not happening.
And that is not always happening.
Okay. Victoria, this is a question from Lonnie and Iea. What do you think of the sweeps of homeless camps?
Well, just for the record, I've never experienced it myself, but it is truly heartbreaking. You know, these people have little to nothing, and I'm not exactly sure who's sending it out, but I mean, why would you take away something, you know, it could be precious to them. It's their home, and it's just being thrown away. There was a little girl from Dear Talia that was mentioned last week. For her to go through that and to know what a sweep is just heartbreaking. A child shouldn't have to go through that. They shouldn't have to worry about that. I mean, for me, I think just people should be more compassionate.
Renson, any thoughts on the sweeps going on in Kaka'ako?
I think they should stop that, because what if you have like important information in it, in your little tents, like your ID, your social security number, birth certificate, and if it was supposed to be thrown away, how are you gonna find jobs? How are you gonna find, how are you gonna work in all that stuff, all that kind of stuff?
Connie, is there another side to the argument on sweeps?
Yeah, I think the service providers have tried really hard to help a lot of the folks who are on the streets have a pouch, you know, to carry all the things that are really important to them. And I think that what they call the sweeps in general, I think that it's really about, to me, it's not about homeless people. It's about, you know, people trying to say, okay, this is public area, and that it isn't meant for people to be living in it. So I think, you know, there is both sides to it. You know, like we have an obligation to make sure public spaces remain common spaces. I think what's difficult is that there's not a place for a lot of people to go, and that is really, you know, difficult. So I think for the families right now, they're trying to find more spaces, you know, and shelter for people. I think for individuals, there is space in the shelters, you know, so we'd like for people to avail themselves of those shelter spaces.
Jill, you were saying a little earlier that you would guess that probably some of your students are being affected because of the proximity to your school. Do you have any thoughts on the sweeps?
Oftentimes, the sweeps cause the children to make a choice. Do I save my basketball, or do I save my school book? And as a child who's 5 years old, and that basketball is gold because I have friends because of that ball, I have something I can do, the school book goes. And it's school property, and we know that, and it's so easy to chase the child and give the child consequences. And we do want to teach our children to be responsible. And we will ask them to look for it, and we will ask them to make every effort to look for it. But at some point, that's it. We're not going to be charging them and sending them bills, because we want to be reasonable and supportive. But these sweeps are making the children pick between their school property and their own personal property.
So at the very least, there should be some sort of mechanism whereby all of the belongings can be safely stored. during this week. All right. From this is a question that is anonymous. Victoria and Renson are doing well and on their way out of the cycle. Are you typical of peers who are also homeless? What advice do you give them? Maybe without mentioning specifics, if you guys have sort of experiences of other children falling into this category who perhaps it's harder to get out of the cycle. Renson.
In my own opinion, I would tell them to take the advantage. Don't turn it down. Just take it. If somebody offers you something, just don't return it. Just take it, because it'll help. I mean, it'll make that person feel better, but also help you. That's pretty much it.
Without naming names, do you have people that are sort of in school, or people you run across who might be in the same situation but are having a harder time than you are?
Yes.
And what do you think is the difference?
Well, for them, they go through a lot because they gotta go through school, and then people, like, not people, but students, some students, they turn them down, then
tease.
Tease and all that. And then also, they have to wake up early, take a bath. Gotta go through all that struggle. The harder and you have to look the harder way.
Here's another question for both of you. Do the teens ever feel guilty that they are succeeding? Victoria, for your mom and brother still being homeless, I mean, part of your plan is to help them, but is there ever sort of a feeling of wistfulness that you've got a home that you would like your family to have?
Definitely. I've kind of faced that every day. I was on a trip due to a school reason in DC, and my family called me up and said they were being forced out by some of the neighbors around us. And it was just kind of hard because, you know, here I am having such a great time and succeeding, but my family's still in that situation. So I've kind of took it upon myself that, you know, I should do something about it. But my mom cried to me and she said, you know, I'm so sorry that I told you about this. You shouldn't have to be worrying about this. You know, you need to do what you need to be doing. And she said not to worry, but, you know, my mom has done so much for my family and I know she's done so much for other people as well. And for her to say that kind of feels like, you know, she's giving up, but I kind of want to I want to be who she was to me.
Connie, this is from Mike in Lihue. Obviously, we've got examples here of young people for whom this will not be the case, but how is generational homelessness a self-perpetuating problem? Why do so many homeless children become homeless adults?
Well, when you think about what homeless is, it's a symptom of poverty. And, you know, when people don't have enough resources to live, then, you know, we talked about making choices, and sometimes the choices are not great. You know, either way, sometimes the choices are not great. So I think, you know, to break the cycle, you know, as Joe was mentioning, education is really important so that the children really do well in school. Unfortunately, when you're homeless, it's difficult because of the lack of structure. People, you know, are not always able to send their children to school, or they're moving from place to place, and then, you know, even though they have a right to go back to the school that they originally came from, they're not always able to because of the transportation issue. Mm-hmm. So there are many challenges, but I think that if people can receive the help that they can, and they can stabilize their life, you know, through school, you know, through the people, the service providers that are willing and able to do that, through people that care, you know, just people in your lives that just love you, you know, and just really are there for you. Mm-hmm. I think that really makes a difference. And for these two, to me, they have a vision for their future. Mm-hmm. If a child is given an opportunity to see a future, mm-hmm. then they can actually change mm-hmm. what, you know, they might have been headed towards. So I think the hope in the future is really important. Mm-hmm.
Jill, Victoria talked about her mother's fear of CPS and of if the school knew that they were homeless, that might be a ground of taking the children away. Maybe it's helpful to clarify that isn't that would never be the basis.
That is not the
Homelessness
case
is never
all.
a basis
No.
of taking children away.
Not at all.
And are there benefits for a family if they let the school know?
Yes. So there is a federal policy, it's called the McKinney-Vento Act. And all families can fill the forms out. Now, once the forms indicate that they're either living in a shelter, they're homeless, or living with relatives, they do qualify for certain benefits. Of course, their income is still looked at, but they could potentially qualify for free breakfast, free lunch. They could, depending where they're staying, qualify for a free bus pass. There's different things that will kick in once they disclose it. And a lot of families are nervous about that because of the stereotypes attached to it and the fears. But remember, if you disclose, it's confidential. It's the law. We cannot tell everyone that you disclose this to us. And there are different social workers who work for the Department of Education who would talk to the families outside of school, so no one at the school has to know that these conversations are happening.
All right.
I want to just
Victoria.
Sorry. The schools do offer a lot, but I'm not sure how it's done in other schools. But at my high school, they allowed us to shower at the gym, and you know, like if we need anything, just go to them. And really, school became kind of like my second family.
Yeah, and those showers would make a huge difference for your daily life.
Definitely.
That's true. I got teachers that also ask if I need help, and then they also, like, for example, my major at school, it's like a motivator to me. He's like, he tells me what to do, like what's right for me to do, what's wrong. Tells me the right choices. And then also, there's, yeah, like she's like she said they give out bus passes, lunch, free meals, breakfast and lunch. Yeah, just take the opportunity to do it. Take it.
One viewer asked, where do you two see yourself in 5 years? Victoria, you start.
I really do hope my family is in a house. That's really my main goal. It's my purpose for going to school, but also to be sharing with others and kind of helping those in the same situation, and just kind of educating the public what it's really like, and for them to see what it's like to take a step in someone else's shoes for a day.
And the stereotypes that don't
to break
help.
that.
Another viewer asked, and maybe I can go ahead and ask you this now, what courses are you taking at UH, and how do you see those courses helping you earn money in the future?
I'm currently majoring in journalism and media. Perfect place to work at PBS.
Yes.
And I'm just taking courses that I feel like will help me and just teach me skills. But I mean, high school got me a head start with college credits, and that kind of just gave me a boost of confidence in college.
Renson, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
5 years, I see myself serving my country.
In the military?
Yeah, in the military.
Do you have a branch that you'd like to go into?
Well, I'm still debating, but I'll choose Army, because Army there's a lot of, there's active duty when you serve, and in active duty they give you a lot of opportunities. Like there's travel, like I said earlier, travel, insurance, and then housing. They pay for college tuitions, financial tuition, yeah. But also, if in 5 years, I would love to give back what people give, like not what people give, but what the program gives me. I would love to pay them back.
Definitely.
Let's perhaps end the program by going around. If people have seen this show tonight and have been inspired by these young people, what are things that everybody could do to help homeless families out there? What are the organizations? How can people help?
I think there are many organizations, some transitional shelters and emergency shelters that could use help. But I think just paying attention, and if you know of a homeless family, really direct them to the services that could really help them get out of being homeless. That is what I really hope, is that we can end the children's homelessness, as quickly as possible.
So on a personal level, if you know a family that is starting to fall behind, trying to offer some immediate help.
Absolutely.
What are your thoughts in terms of what people can do to help?
Support the DOE. Our budget is only so large, and there's a lot of things that we need to cover with our limited resources. And so the partnerships with the schools help us to provide opportunities that we would not be able to do, whether it's to help the students who don't have school supplies because of their situations, or just to enhance our curriculum and buy things like Lego kits or STEM equipment, just to provide these different opportunities to enhance what we are already doing at our schools.
Victoria, what do you think people can do to help?
I agree with both Connie and Jill that, you know, just to have that kind of support in the community, education indefinitely, because if you can see a future, there's something to work towards, and just compassion. That's all I ask for, compassion and understanding, and I know a lot of people are out there have that. Yeah.
Do people ever say something to you that perhaps they're not aware of your situation, and they say something that maybe they don't understand and you need to kind of share with them?
Sometimes, yes. They will just say that, they'll say something about being homeless, and I'll be like, oh, I guess that counts me because I'm a part of that.
And are they surprised?
Yeah, they're just like, what?
Yeah, and they learn something from you. Yeah. Brenton, what would be something you think people can do to help, everybody could do to help?
Well, they can create more programs, go out, ask people that are homeless to join the program. Also, you need, like, well, I don't know, like, you need people with that strong attitude, like that motivation attitude. Like, you need to, you like,
help everyone they come in contact with who might be in this situation.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. I found tonight's conversation very inspiring. Thank you all for taking the time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Next week, Insights will air a little more than an hour later at 9:10 p.m. Immediately following, PBS Hawaii presents Ike, Knowledge is Everywhere, and tonight's guest, Victoria, was interviewed for that. The film Ike shows several innovative educators who are helping learners in challenged communities raise their educational and career prospects. Insights will look at how outside-the-box thinking is removing barriers in education, opening new opportunities to further students' goals, and inspiring learners of all ages to aim high and achieve success. How are innovators bringing new opportunities to Hawaii students? That's next time on Insights on PBS Hawaii. I'm Malia Maddock. A hui ho.